She stood there in her red blouse, smiling like the whole world already belonged to her. One finger pointed straight at me while the bulldozer tore into the hunting cabin my grandfather had built with his own hands. Wood splintered. Dust filled the air. Police cruisers lined the road, lights flashing but sirens silent. Officers stood behind her like lifeless statues as she raised her voice so everyone could hear. You didn't pay your HOA fees. This is the consequence. I tightened my grip on the shotgun not because I planned to use it, but because it was the only thing stopping my hands from shaking apart. That cabin wasn't just boards and nails. It was the last living piece of my family's history. You can't do this, I said. She laughed, sharp and confident. Actually, I can. And when this is over, you'll be gone for good. Neighbors filmed from every angle, whispering to each other, and I felt humiliation burn in my chest. To them, I looked helpless, just another man about to lose everything to a woman with fake authority and the right connections. She leaned closer, her perfume cutting through the dust and diesel. Go ahead, she whispered. Call whoever you want. Nobody's coming to save you. I looked at her, then at the officers who seemed far too calm for what was happening, and said quietly, that's where you're wrong. I reached into my coat not for comfort, but for truth. I pulled out my federal judge ID and clipped it where everyone could see. Beside it, a small recorder blinked red, capturing the last 5 minutes of her orders. Her smile faltered. You just authorized demolition on disputed land you don't own, I said evenly. That's not an HOA violation. That's trespass and fraud. Her eyes hardened. Behind her, the officers shifted uneasily, like animals sensing a storm. I watched her silently count her allies and realized some of them weren't real deputies at all, just hired muscle. I turned to the crowd. Every video you're recording is evidence now, tapped the recorder. It's already backed up to my lawyer's cloud. The neighbor flying a drone froze midair. Another lowered their phone. She tried to laugh it off, then snapped. You can't do this. I run this neighborhood, I smiled. You don't run my land. I do, she fired back, desperation creeping in. And I have people who work for the law. They answer to one named the marshal. The color drained from her face as a siren rose in the distance. For the first time that day, the balance shifted. The sound grew louder, echoing across the lake, until 3 black SUVs rolled in behind the cruisers. The officers who had stood so confidently now stepped back toward their cars. She straightened her shoulders, pretending she wasn't rattled, but I saw her grip tighten around a stack of forged papers. The SUV doors opened. Real federal marshals stepped out, vests catching the sunlight. One walked straight to me and nodded. Judge, we got your call. That single word, Judge, hit the crowd like a stone dropped in water. Phones lifted again, but now every lens turned toward her. Don't believe him, she snapped. He's lying. He's pretending. The marshal didn't let her finish. He took the papers from her hands and examined them. These aren't government documents. They're forged. She went pale. No, this is a mistake. I leaned close enough for her to hear me over the murmurs. You wanted to humiliate me in front of my neighbors. Now, you're about to be exposed in front of the entire counter. Right then, the bulldozer engine cut out. The operator climbed down slowly, like he wanted no part of what this had become. The silence that followed felt heavier than the destruction itself. She spun toward the officers she thought were still loyal. Arrest him. He threatened me with a gun. Her voice cracked, panic breaking through her polished confidence. The cops hesitated, caught between orders that no longer made sense. I lowered the shotgun, rested it gently against the fence, and raised both hands. Go ahead, I said calmly. Run my name. One young officer spoke into his radio. His eyes widened. He whispered to the others, and they stepped back. She felt it before anyone spoke. Don't listen to him, she screamed. He doesn't belong here. The marshal raised the recorder and replayed her own words. You didn't pay your HOA fees, so this is what happens. Her voice echoed over the silent crowd. She lunged for the device, but another marshal caught her wrist. Gasps spread. Phones rose higher. Someone whispered what everyone was thinking. She's finished. I stood there, watching her empire collapse into the same dust that once held my grandfather's cabin. Still, I knew she wasn't done yet. Her eyes darted wildly, then she bolted. She ripped car keys from her pocket and ran for the nearest cruiser. For a moment, no one moved. Then the engine roared to life. People scattered, shouting. A marshal reached for his weapon, but I raised my hand. Wait. Tires screamed as gravel sprayed. She tried to tear out of the cul-de-sac like she could outrun the law itself. Halfway down the road, flashing lights blocked the exit. County sheriffs closing in. She slammed the brakes. Smoke curled from the tires. Cornered, defiant, trapped like a wounded animal, the marshals advanced. Instead of surrendering, she rolled down the window and screamed, "You don't understand. He's the dangerous one. He's been hiding secrets from all of you." Gasps rippled through the crowd. My chest tightened, not because she was right, but because she was about to drag into the open something I'd fought to keep buried. I had built my life on quiet authority, on revealing only what was necessary. Now, the secret I'd locked away was about to become her final weapon. The street went dead silent, broken only by the ticking of her idling engine. Neighbors leaned forward, phones shaking in their hands, waiting for the bomb she was about to drop. She jabbed a finger straight at me, her voice slicing through the air like broken glass. "Ask him why he never shows his face in court around here. Ask him why he hides in that cabin like a ghost. He's not just some judge. He's the one who signed the order that sent my brother to prison." A sharp wave of gasps rippled through the crowd. Heads snapped toward me. Phones tilted. Suspicion crept into faces that moments ago were certain of her guilt. My jaw tightened as memories pressed hard against the walls I'd spent years building to keep them contained. She thought she'd found her final weapon, the one truth she could twist into poison. I didn't step back. I stepped forward. "My ruling didn't send your brother to prison," I said calmly, my voice low but firm enough to carry. "He went because he torched 3 families' homes in an insurance scam. I didn't hide that decision. I stood by it." Her face twisted, fury pouring out unchecked. "You destroyed my family," she screamed, gripping the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles blanched white. The marshal leaned closer to her open window. "No," he said evenly. "Your family destroyed itself." While every eye stayed locked on her rage, no one noticed where my attention drifted to the hill behind the property. At the crest sat another bulldozer, untouched, engine idling. It wasn't part of the HOA demolition order. It was hers. A low rumble rolled down the slope, vibrating through the ground. Heads turned all at once. The second bulldozer's headlights flared through the dust, glowing like 2 burning eyes. My stomach clenched. She had planned far more than humiliation. The machine surged forward, crushing brush and fencing as it barreled downhill straight toward the crowd. Neighbors screamed and scattered. Parents grabbed children. Phones shook wildly as panic exploded across the scene. She leaned halfway out of the cruiser window, laughing now sharp, unhinged. "If I lose everything," she shouted, "he loses everything too." Marshals sprinted, shouting commands at the operator to stop. But the figure inside the cab wore a ski mask and didn't hesitate. The earth shook with each roll of its massive tires. For a moment, it looked unstoppable. I moved toward my shotgun, then froze. Because in that chaos, it finally clicked. She wasn't aiming for what was left of the cabin. That part was already gone. She was aiming for what lay beneath it. The buried steel lockbox, the foundation stash holding deeds, recordings, and the single document tying her entire fake HOA empire together. I locked eyes with her through the dust. She smirked. She knew I understood. This wasn't revenge anymore. It was erasure. Destroy the proof, and the truth would vanish with it. The bulldozer roared closer, blade lowering. Wood splintered. Dirt and debris flew as it tore toward the wreckage. Neighbors clung to fences, filming through clouds of dust. Marshals shouted, trying to push people back, while she screamed from the cruiser window, her voice manic, "Crush it. Destroy everything." I ran straight into the dust, ignoring the shouts behind me. The ground bucked under my boots as the bulldozer's shadow swallowed the ruins. For a split second, I saw at the corner of the steel lockbox jutting from beneath broken beams. If that blade hit, decades of evidence would be gone forever. I dove forward. grabbing the handle just as the blade screeched down inches away. A gunshot cracked through the air, the bulldozer shuddered violently. Smoke burst from the engine as hydraulic fluid sprayed. One of the marshals had fired straight into the hydraulic line, freezing the blade mid-drop. The mast operator slammed his fists against the controls. But the machine coughed, sputtered, and died. Silence fell thick. Unreal, broken only by my heavy breathing and the solid weight of the lockbox in my arms. I turned toward the crowd and lifted it high. "This," I said, my voice carrying through the stillness, "is the truth she tried to bury." Gasps rippled outward. Camera zoomed in. For the first time all day, she had nothing to say. She sat frozen in the cruiser, trembling, already knowing the game was over. I set the lockbox on the hood of a marshal's SUV as dust continued to rise behind me. An officer snapped it open, pulling out deeds, letters, audio recordings, her voice clear and unmistakable. Every threat, every scheme, every forged notice. The neighbors pressed closer, filming every page as it fluttered in the wind. She finally stepped out of the cruiser, shoulders sagging, the fight drained from her eyes. A marshal took her wrists and read the charges loud enough for the entire street to hear: fraud, trespassing, impersonating law enforcement. The same crowd she once ruled with fear now watched her collapse. Some cheered, others shook their heads. Not one person stood beside her. I looked at what remained of my grandfather's cabin, felt the ache in my chest, and still lifted my chin. "You can tear down wood and stone," I said, my voice steady, "but you can't tear down the law, and you can't steal land that was never yours." They led her past me, and for the first time, she had nothing left to say. Phones flashed, capturing every step of her walk of shame. I rested my hand on the lockbox, heavy, solid, and knew the cabin could be rebuilt. What mattered was the truth. As the SUVs pulled away and the sirens faded, a neighbor whispered the line that would echo across every post, every clip, every share online. "She tried to bury him, but he buried her instead."